Hi, this is Lamar, and you're listening to Getting to Third Space with Lamar and Tom. A third space is a term that refers to a safe space for people to come together for respectful dialogue in a spirit of listening, sharing, and learning. In this podcast, we explore what it means to have third space conversations, and we try to model them. If you like what you hear in this podcast, please be sure to subscribe, share it, and of course, like it. The more people join us, the quicker we get to third space as a society. Now let's get to third space today.
Hey, Lamar, how's it going today?
Hey, Tom, I'm doing well. How about you, man?
You know, I'm pretty excited today.
You are?
I am.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm very excited. We've got a really interesting guest today.
We do. Joolz Casey from the UK is waiting in the green room for us.
She is, and she's going to talk with us about a movement that she started about 3 or 4 years ago. I think I'm going to say probably around, maybe longer than that, 2020, I think was when I was first introduced to it. And it's called a hashtag behumankind. And
Behumankind.
And she's gonna tell us about that movement and how it came to be. So,
well, let's invite her in. Let's get on this conversation.
We will open the door of the green room and get her in here.
All right.
Okay, we've opened the door to the green room, and Joolz Casey has stepped through. Welcome, Joolz.
Thank you. Well, nice to be here.
Good to see you, Joolz.
All right, are you going to ask her or am I going to ask her, Lamar?
Go ahead and ask her.
So, did you get the gift basket that Lamar left in the green room?
No, I think he forgot to put it there.
No!
Well, I was having trouble because there's a part of it was bananas, and the tariff on bananas is so high that I couldn't. Your credit card, Tom, was expired. And
what?
So it might be coming a little bit later, Joolz.
So anyway, Joolz, welcome. We are really glad to have you here today. And because we both grew up in the agricultural part of the United States, we have to ask you this question. So how is the weather where you are, and where are you?
So actually, it's great that you're asking me about the weather because I'm British. We always talk about the weather, obviously. It's the beginning of every conversation. What's the weather like today? How are you, and what's the weather like? So you're in good company. So in true British style, I would say that actually, I'm also from Yorkshire. I don't know if you probably don't know the accents, but this is a Yorkshire accent. And one of the terms we would use for the weather today here in the UK is it's muggy.
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 Okay, I like that one.
That's good.
Yeah.
And we actually know what that means, too, because it's been muggy here, too. Yes.
Humidity is high, right?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Well, actually, so I have to confess to being a huge fan of British television. And one of my favorite shows, and it's now its second rendition of it, is set in Yorkshire, which is All Creatures Great and Small.
Oh, yeah.
Love that show. Show. So tell us just a little bit about where you live.
I know the village where it's filmed.
Oh, nice.
And some of the filming around in that area I used to know really well because I was born not in Yorkshire, but I've lived most of my life in Yorkshire in different parts of Yorkshire, separated by north, west, east, and south. And I've lived in North Yorkshire and now in East Yorkshire, and I've lived in various places as well in Yorkshire. So I think James Herriot, All Creatures Great and Small, was based in the villages in North Yorkshire, and I trained as a nurse based in North Yorkshire in a village not far from the village, believe it or not, where All Creatures Great and Small has been filmed.
Very cool.
Yeah, Yorkshire lass and always will be. So I've worked in London on and off for probably most of my career, which spans about 40 years. I've never, ever had the urge to move to London. I've always commuted backwards and forwards. I currently live in a village. Well, it's not even a village. It's described as a hamlet.
Hamlet.
We haven't got a shop. I live on a dead end lane, and it's in East Yorkshire, so it's only about 3-4 miles from the coast. And then in the countryside, in farming, like a farming community. So surrounded by wheat fields and crops and that sort of stuff. And I live in a converted old smithy. So it's a blacksmith's. It was a blacksmith's shop originally.
Very nice.
How cool.
Just history everywhere. And if you go not too far, I mean, everyone thinks of York when you think about history and Vikings and all of that. And you've got castles and walls and everything, you know. But equally, our sort of more local village, there's a village called Beverley, which also has walls. It's like a smaller version of York, and loads of history. And there's a lot of history in Yorkshire.
Well, you talk about being able to be just real close to wheat fields and agriculture. It sounds a lot like where I'm at, except I don't have a shoreline. I could walk out the end of my yard and I walk into a cornfield as right now.
Nice.
But usually it's a wheat field or a bean field. Yeah. So it's kind of a nice way to live, be able to enjoy a bit of the town life, village life, and also appreciate the agriculture. I would like to know a little bit more about you. If you were to describe yourself to somebody, Joolz, how would you introduce yourself and tell them about who you are?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great prompt for me to sort of talk about the first bit of Be Humankind as well, because the key question that is at the center of Be Humankind is, who am I? And the reason that it's there is that in the UK, through schooling and growing up, it's not a key question. It's not asked, who am I? You know, children aren't asked to focus on, do any sort of self-reflection on who they are. And as we grow into teenagers and young adults, we all struggle, I think, to work out who we are and what our status in the world is and what we want to be, what we want to do. And there's a lot of focus on doing. So it's a key question of Be Humankind, and it's called Be Humankind, so that we start with a focus on being. Who do we want to be, rather than what do we want to do? So it's one of our first sort of questions that ask humans to reflect on what's more important, doing or being human. And so who am I is a super important question to start us off. So there's a few things that we do. One is to ask people to think about roles, and what roles do you serve, and do they help describe who you are? And we use a tool over here in the UK called one-page profiles, which is part of the movement around person-centred planning and person-centred care across the UK. So it's actually a really important question to start with for me, and I'll share a few of the things that I've practice around who I am and what that means when I talk and introduce myself to people. I would send them my one-page profile. I can't remember. Did I send you my one-page profile? I hope I did.
No.
I'll send it after.
Yes, but we would like to see it.
Sure. Well, I'd love to see it, because I think the whole idea of a one-page profile is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
What a great way to introduce yourself to people. So anyway, but no, you didn't send it to us, but you can.
I will.
Take it from there.
Absolutely, the one-page profile is about who I am, rather than what roles I play and what do I do. So it doesn't start with what job title we've got or anything like that. It really does give you a chance to reflect on who you are and how you function. So one of the things is roles. So I am a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a partner, I'm a friend, I'm a mother. And then, so those are roles that are important to me. So we do some work in Be Humankind about what's really important to you. So we use roles to help people to explore that. So that's powerful. So those are my sort of roles. Interestingly, when I did this more recently, I no longer talk about colleagues or work roles, and that's been a real transformation for me. But I can come on to that when I talk about Be Humankind a bit more. We then use something called high five. I don't know if you've heard of it. So instead of identifying ourselves as having skills, we really focus at Be Humankind on talents and what we're talented at, and we promote that. And it's free. It's a little thing online that you can use for free, and you get your high five. You answer, like 100 questions, and again and again and again, we get reports back from people that have used that tool, going, "Gosh, that was really clever. It really told me what I'm good at." So one of mine, my number one, I thought I'd share. My number one high five talent is an empath. So that's what comes out the strongest, and it makes great sense when I look at what I do and what I'm interested in, and it relates very strongly to Be Humankind as well. So I'm in the right place, I think, doing the right thing. Other words, I had a look at when we do our one-page profiles, and when we do in some of the Be Humankind content, we have some skill development. One of the areas is empathy, developing our empathy skills. And we run and host something called the Empathy Gym. So anyone can come along and practice their empathy in the gym to really hone those skills and develop them. And so we do give each other feedback, and I've just picked some of the words that people have used very kindly to describe me. We always seem to prefer it when we're using words how other people describe us than when we use our own, which is an interesting reflection. But authentic is a word people use. Creative, bold, courageous, adventurous, fun, funny, perceptive, trusted, and very knowledgeable, particularly with regards to the human service system, as we might refer to it in the UK. So really around all of the health and social care system in the UK. I've spent most of, 90% of it, my career in that sector. So I think I'm a kind human, and I certainly work hard to practice kindness. And one of my strong motivators is about service and service for others, and about being in service. And I love learning, and I'm curious, and I'm always wanting to learn. I am definitely, if we start looking at personality types, I am definitely an extrovert and a social thinker. If you know what that is, it means I talk a lot. I learn from chatting and exploring stuff with others, definitely. So that's some of the stuff out of my Who Am I.
Well, so now I know how I connected with you, Joolz, because we were thrown into a small group together back in 2020, I think, and in a online workshop we were attending, and we just kind of hit it off and began to chat. And you were telling me about hashtag Be Humankind, and we just kind of rolled from there. So now I understand why that was.
Good.
Yeah. Well, in your LinkedIn profile, you made a statement that really grabbed my attention. You said, "I am fascinated at how we can live our best life in kindness."
Yeah.
I'm wondering, can you tell us a little bit more about that and what you mean by that?
Yeah. I'll have a go at unpacking it. It's a massive question, isn't it? Or a massive statement, really. And I think I possibly make it because or everything that I've been doing in the last 3 to 4 years have really focused on living well or living your best life, and it's focused on kindness, and there's a very strong link with those two things. So I think one really interesting way of looking at it is to think about living our best life in unkindness. So if I go back to my early career, let's say, so I trained as a nurse, which I think you know, and it was a section of nursing which was about working with people with difference and disability. It wasn't called that back then. It was called something horrible. The registered nurse for one was mentally insane and the other was mentally handicapped. So really unkind ways of thinking about humans. So even that stood out for me back then, about the language we use and how unkind that is, that one human to another could speak about each other like that. And then I thought I was going about my life being way better than that and aiming to live in kindness and be kind and be in service of others. But the system, the first, say, 15 years of my career, I found myself working really, really hard to be in service of others through nursing. And I was involved in closing the long stay hospitals. And I believe there are similar things in America, because I've got some strong links with some of the American sort of social care and health people over the years that I've worked with and been involved with. So we had a similar path of understanding how unkind and inhumane those places were, that we put people and thought that that was the best place for them, and then recognised probably in the 70s, 80s that really wasn't the best place for humans, and it was actually deeply unkind and not very fair or reasonable even. So certainly in the UK, I was on a mission then to close as many of those, or be involved in closing as many of those as possible. And the idea we had in the UK was called community care in the community. And so that was better. That was more kind, maybe, but there was a lot of things that weren't kind still, and a lot to learn. But that was my beginning of thinking about human kindness, and how actually, unless we really think about it, we just by habit can be quite unkind in sections of society around different things. And I learned all about the psychology of how, if we label people and then put them together in a group and then devalue them, the massive, awful and horrible effects that can have on that group of people. And actually the only way to be kind is to treat every person we meet as a person, individual, human, and to, get to know them rather than their labels or the reputations they might have that other people have put there. So that's unkindness. And then I realised, actually, if you're involved in that unkindness, in that you're there trying to help be kind, to maybe reverse that, there is a powerful thing that happens in a culture of unkindness, which can get you and you end up being part of it. And so again, I think that's fascinating, that human behavior is a infectious, isn't it? And so if I was working for 15 years in pursuit of improving and normalizing, was one of the words we used, and creating equality across human services, so that people had equal chances and all these great things we talked about. But the people working in that system, like myself, often overworked and worked in passion and with a lot of emotion, and that could end up resulting in unkindness to others. So you became part of a system that was trying to do good, that had negative consequences of that good. And so you ended up being unkind to yourself. And then if you were being unkind to yourself because you were too busy or you got too much to do. So one of the things we know is burnout. So if you were like having signs of burnout, then the reality was, without realizing it, you were probably being unkind to yourself, overworking, tired, all of these things that we know aren't good for us. And therefore, you probably weren't making good decisions. And you were probably being unkind to a workforce, maybe that you were responsible for or working with. Yet you'd started in pursuit of kindness and to change that. So I talk about living our best life in kindness to try and think about how we can live better for ourselves first, and we can address that balance to, some of us come onto this earth and our purpose while we're here is to serve others that have less than us or have less rights or whatever. And nursing particularly, isn't it? It's that sense of being caring, which is brilliant. But be careful that you don't do that and mean that you're unkind to yourself, which ultimately will lead you being unkind to others, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Here in the U.S., in a parallel, you mentioned that you knew that the U.S. is going through some similar kinds of things. We would have called it. It would have been in the late '80s, mental health reform and privatization, moving people from institutional care into more community-based services, which, just by the terms that that was being used, you knew that there was also a financial investment, and you also had communities who had no idea. Because for so long they never provided that kind of care for their community members. How do you build a supportive system that you didn't have before? And on top of that, then what you referred to, I think I experienced myself and others that I knew, was that you tended to overfunction and carry loads that had direct impact on people's lives. And so you couldn't not carry those loads, but it impacted your perception and your own ability to be the kind of caregiver or the kind of provider that you wanted to be. And hence, coming across sometimes as unkind. I know that struggle. And so I'm curious, the story that you told us, how did you move through that, and kind of what is it you do now as a result of that experience in the work that you do? How have you made that transition?
Yeah. Oh, that's a huge question, Lamar.
I know. I'm sorry. It's a big one. But what your story has just brought back a lot of memories for me.
Yeah. I think what I've done, and I'll come on to that when I talk about Be Humankind a bit more, but I think personally what I've done is I saw 2 or 3 cases of it, quite severe, where I'd ended up in conflict with someone else working in a charity environment or a social care environment or a health environment. I've got examples of them all, where because I was really passionate and really caring, I thought I was right and they were wrong. And I could see that I was doing it for the right reasons, and I maybe would question their reasons. I don't know. I can't remember exactly that long ago. But all of that now is not how I operate at all. All of that is different, I would say. So I think I work really, really hard to always not be judgmental, always listen and understand the other person first. I looking constantly for that win-win. And when I say win-win, I mean peaceful solution, probably. What's the way through this based on your understanding of the situation and my understanding of the situation that would make it better for the purpose we're here for. So in the human services, when you're working passionately, I see so many, and it is more apparent with female workforce. It's a bigger female workforce. People are overworking, and they then get stuck into this habit of overworking to somehow justify why and who they are in being that giver, and they're not separating themselves from it, if that makes sense, and it can all get a bit muddled, and I don't know what happened, but I started to see that and realize that I can't keep ending up in conflict, and it being really difficult and burning out or being near burnout. I want to find a way that's not doing that, and also beginning to realize that this idea of a career and a big house and a family, and as a woman a full-time job, is, I'm not sure who put it out there, but it ended up in me somehow, that's all possible. And and that equals, and the biggest issue with it is that equals success, was like this big fat lie to me, I think, in the sort of 15 years in. I went back to uni part-time with 2 young kids, and studied and did an MSc in human centered counselling. So I think that's really important bit of my journey as well. I think that began the journey for me of looking at myself and thinking about the world with my own, and recognizing that you're not taking a picture of the world, you're just looking at it through your own lens. So everyone has their own lens, and everyone's coming at it from their own perspective, and really started to listen and understand the power of empathy, really. So, and then studied it for 4 years. So it's obviously had even more impact on me than the original training I did in the sort of nursing.
What you just referred to is something Tom and I have talked a lot about on this channel, about being able to come to the table and have what we are referring to as a third space conversation or a third space interaction, and being able to listen, being able to understand, and not trying to win in the conversation, but trying to learn. I mean, that's a very different position maybe than when I go back into my career, my life, that maybe I've had in the past.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that in so many regards, I wish that I had come to this at a much earlier stage of my own career. It would have been very nice. Joolz, you've mentioned a couple of times, you've said, when I get to talking about #behumankind. So we want to give you that opportunity to do that. I know that #behumankind started about 3 or 4 years ago, and you started that group, that movement. Can you help our audience understand what is #behumankind, and then tell us why?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So actually, you've sort of answered the why in one way in your question when you said about you wish you'd learned that earlier in life. So this thing about the getting to third space, or getting to a peaceful outcome that is a powerful outcome as well. It's like the best outcome. We wouldn't have thought about it unless we'd approached it in this different way. Is really why be humankind? So everything that's in Be Humankind is in there, in the hope of offering and gifting and bringing to the world, to people, to humans, some ideas about how to replace the big fat lie that I talked about earlier about what does success look like. It's not It's not what you own necessarily. It might be in part, but it's not what you own or what you do. It's who you are. So it's who do you want to be? I'm quite a big system thinker, so I like to create and understand complex situations, maybe with a big picture and an understanding of what's going on. And in some ways, Be Humankind is an offering, a way of being, and a way of rethinking, or a couple of challenging thoughts around how you might reframe you or how you see the world, and then a collection of habits that would then serve you better to be the best human that you could be. And then the other side of it is, what tools and what skills might I sharpen to be even better? And that's the sort of second part that Be Humankind offers. It offers ideas around skill development, or what we call the superpowers, which are there because when they're present in a situation, you're more likely to get an outcome that you feel proud of or happy to have been part of, or that takes you to a next level or a different space, all of that sort of stuff that we've been talking about.
So you mentioned the habits.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, is it in the habits that's how people operationalize #BeHumankind? Is that correct? And if so, can you give us an example of some of the habits?
Yeah. So Be Humankind is like this movement, as you referred to. So it's more about a community. It's not about work, it's about human first. So we talk about human first, and that's partly a challenge to our thinking about work, and that, we should go to work and work in an organization and get paid for doing so, and then bring that money home and then use that to live. So it's really a challenge to, the work to live to work. Have you heard that sort of thought, that we're here to serve others on here in the world? We might believe that might be our purpose, so we go and find what we're good at, and then we go and do that and bring the money home, and then use the money to have a life. So it's more about thinking that actually, no, we are one, we are who we are on this earth, and we have things that we're good at that we might want to offer up to the world, rather than we have to go and get a job and earn money. It's quite a different sort of thought. And from that are the sort of study of who am I, to understand, and reflect on all of that for self, and think about who you are and what actually really is important to you, rather than, what do you do sort of thing. So a bit of reflection. And then the habits provide, there's 4 habits, and they provide 4 key shifts potentially that you might make. Habit 1 is about self. So it's about what we've been talking about, being your best self. And it's built around some of the simple psychology of understanding how we as humans frame things or do things. So the sort of basic positive psychology movement of see, do, get, about how you see the world affects what you do, and what you do affects what you get, and how you can shape and reframe that by habit, and how you might do that using a process of understanding what you are controlling or being in control of, or letting be controlled by, and what you can get curious about to influence, and how you might. So each of the habits has got a growing backstory of information and things you can read. So you can join Be Humankind because you believe in the concept, and then you can go to different levels within it to suit you. So it's a very much what we call a self-directed movement. So the way that we are together, being together, is as important as this sense of self-reflection And so a self-directed movement or a community movement replaces work, essentially, is possibly the long-term suggestion, is that we need to shift our focus on how we work, and it needs to start with us, and it needs to start with us knowing who we are and knowing which community we want to be part of and that sort of thing.
Lamar here. I know that this podcast is going a little long today, but hang in there with us. It's going to be worth it. If you need to take a break, go ahead. And while on the break, be sure to take a moment and hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe. Share this podcast with somebody, and even send us a comment. You can send me an email at lamarthirdspace@gmail.com. Now remember, that's Lamar, the number 3, RD. Now back to the podcast. What are you seeing as people are participating in this project? If you want to call it a project or this meeting, what are you seeing and what are you noticing? How are people finding the experience?
Yeah, so I'm glad you used the word experience, Lamar. That's brilliant. So we sometimes people go, "Oh, do you run courses or programs so that we could learn be humankind?" It was, no, you can't learn to be the perfect human, and that wouldn't be genuine. But what you can do is engage with be humankind as an experience. So you can join a group, and you can go through the learnings and the reflections and the thoughts and the mindset shifts and the habits and the ideas together as a group, which then means that you spend ages doing some self-reflection and reading. So there's an online reader for every part of Be Humankind. And then either with QR codes or being sent stuff, you then can join in what we call a community experience around that habit. We can package that all together, or we've tried that. We've packaged it all together. We call it the practitioner experience. And we merely call it that because we didn't really know what else to call it. And people said, well, we need to call it something. So we came up with practitioner because it's about practice. Yeah. So it's about self-practice, these habits and skills together in a community where I get to know people and trust them and can talk about how I feel about what I have reflected on around this habit or that habit. So we've operationalized it, I guess, in that that's one way, because we're looking at it being a movement. So who wants to join in? And I'm sort of like trying to orchestrate that by listening to people and what they want, rather than, and this is a challenge, rather than me going, oh, let's do this. I'm trying to be very emergent with it and go, here's the concepts. These are the things that I've gathered like a magpie. I've gone out there and I've looked at all of the great stuff out there about self-reflection and understanding and habits that serve us better and ways we can think about things or do things that can really help us to be better because we choose to be. And then I've put them all in a big space, which is virtual, and organised them into this Be Humankind model of the who am I at the centre, the 4 habits, and then the 4 superpowers. And you can come and be a practitioner and level and practice all of that with a group. We have then got a model for a team and a model for an organisation. So logically, we've then taken all of that and gone, how does that apply to a team? How does that apply to an organisation? So we've got a 3D model, essentially. So its potential is huge. It's massive, because you can only use one part of it, either as self or a team or as an organisation. And you can go on a number of experiences using it in all of those different ways. So we've equally worked with individuals with the practitioner approach to see where we've got with that. We've worked with teams using the team tools, and we've worked with 10 organisations. Can't believe we managed to do that in 3 years. On using the sort of organisational change or organisational well-being model. it's sometimes referred to. So there's so much to tell you. But to answer your question about for self and how you might access it, then at the moment we are in a reflection and development phase. And it is about saying we've run, I think, about 10 experiences now for self, individuals. Some people have gone from practitioner and wanted to get more involved. So we created facilitators who could become a behumankind facilitator.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. And behumankind facilitators are essentially what you might call, if you were in an ordinary, if you were in a traditional organization, they might be called the team, the managers, the leaders. Yeah. But we don't have that because no one's paid to be there. This is all voluntary. This is all self-directed. So this is empowering people to go, yeah, I want to do more. I want to get more involved. So it's making sure there's something for them when they want to get more involved. So we've got probably about 25, 30 people that have gone through that self journey and then ended up with this facilitator badge, let's call it. And they then get regular support monthly through what we call a kindness circle, and they come along and talk about kindness at the circle and how they're using the tools and the mindsets and what they want to do. So that's very emergent. And we have a monthly what we call base camp meeting for people that usually facilitators, but occasionally some practitioners might get involved in that because they want to be more involved. And that's where we really talk about the movement and behumankind and where it's going and who wants to do what. The original principles was adoption and then development based on what emerged, really.
Is there a cost for people to join, and how would they actually go about joining #BeHumankind?
Yeah, so there's no cost to join the community, and that will remain the same forever. Not like one of these communities that's free for a while and then suddenly you have to pay. So, and that's based on what everybody wants it to be, but it doesn't give you much other than you're signing up to a community. And there is stuff about kindness, and there's 600-700 people in there now that all believe that there's a better way to live. And a better way, there are ways to be kinder, and there is stuff you can learn to help yourself do that. So you get access to all those people because it's a clever one of these digital platforms that sits in the background running it. But what we are working on is introducing, a level of paid membership, which gives you a bit more, and that's based on what people are saying that they might want. So we're currently working on that. And then you can join a behumankind experience, which for self, the one I was describing, is about, it depends who's running it and what they want to charge. So now we've got like 20, 30 facilitators. If they want to run an experience, they just run it past the other people at base camp and go, I want to do this. An example of one at the minute is we've got 3 people actually that are what we might call base camp members. They're all facilitators. They want to run a faith-based version of behumankind with some faith groups. Very logical, makes sense. So they're working on the structure of that and what that might look like. And then they're coming back with, this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to pay for it. And this is what it would cost. And it gets agreed by base camp. So, but the original facilitator experiences were about £350, I think, something like that for a person. And the reality is within sort of 12 months, 18 months, they could be definitely getting that back by getting involved in some of the work that they might do as a facilitator, either that they design or that they do with another member, if that makes sense. So the work we've done with organisations grew very fast. We managed to find quite quickly a number of charities and social care providers and generic charities that were really interested in it and saw it as at the organizational level, something that could really improve their culture. So we have quite a lot happening in the UK about recognizing kindness since the pandemic more, and people putting kindness as a value in their, logos or values of their organizations, but they're not really practicing it. So we can provide, obviously, help to help them realize that dream of having kindness as a value. Or we've worked with a few charities where they have clear unkindness in their culture, and we've worked with them to shift that. So the facilitators might then get involved in that as well. But we were getting swamped with organizations, so we have pulled back a bit on that.
Sure. That's a lot of work. Besides Tom and I,
Yeah.
over here in the U.S., what's Be Humankind's experience beyond the UK? Are you finding a lot of interest internationally?
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah, it's small steps. Lamar, we've. I think what has emerged and what we've learned is that we've spent too much time in the UK on organisational change and using Be Humankind thinking and habits and stuff to help there. And we've done some brilliant work with a couple of charities that are, they're real champions for us, and they love us, we love them. But we spent all of our energy there. So we have an annual gathering, which Tom came to the session of our annual gathering that was the international hour, or whatever we called it. So we want to reach more internationally. And so we started thinking about that. So we've had 2 now. Tom's been a great supporter of international kindness conversations.
Well, except I showed up late at the because I didn't make the transition in my head of the time zone. Yes, yeah. It was they were about to wind up, and I just show up. It's and everybody was so kind.
You're
they
right.
stayed on for a while to engage with me, which was really nice. So
yeah, you weren't the only one. We actually ended up that international kindness meeting lasted 3 hours because we had different parts of the world coming in at different points.
Oh my. Okay.
We learned from that and we all enjoyed it. It was great. So yeah, we want to be, obviously, we want it to become international. My original logical brain and my big picture vision was that we'd have people across the world going, I'll tell you what, I'll do you, Joolz, but in Australia, or I'll be you in America, or what have you. So it would grow that way through, and that's still possible. There is people in different parts of the world that are connected to us, and we're certainly got that on our new grand plan from the last annual gathering to spend more time on the community bit and more time on the international bit, and less of our energies on the organizational piece. But we still need to do the organizational piece as well. So we've been thinking differently about that. So I'm currently thinking about and writing and rebuilding a model for providing toolkits so that for organizations we could meet up with people that in effect could become their organizational's Be Humankind sort of champion or facilitator, and we'd provide the toolkit. So we're currently...
Well, maybe Lamar and I could be you in the United States. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So, Joolz, I remember that when I joined, and I think when Lamar joined, it was a simple matter, really, of going to your website and just signing in, right? And so we'll put a link to the website in the show notes and encourage people to go there if they want to connect and become a part of hashtag Be Humankind. And I found I have not had the opportunity, because I just really retired about a year ago. And as you know, I've had a few health issues to navigate. And I haven't really had the opportunity to spend as much time looking at some of the things that are offered there and giving consideration to really jumping in. I'm hoping that that's something I can do in the near future is looking at, how do I become that practitioner? How do I become that facilitator? I think it's just very interesting, and it really aligns so very, very nicely with work that I had done previously before retiring.
Yeah, and there is in there for general members that have just joined and are having a look around. There is an introduction to the habits and the superpowers. It's like snippets of different parts of it for you to get a feel of it. So that still exists in there. And when we go to the next level of membership, which the idea is it to be a bit like a cooperative where members pay what they can afford, or they want to be part of this and they want to put a small amount in so that we've got a community budget so that we can then use the community budget to put on stuff. We tried a few things like kindness cafes. We've had kindness coffee check-ins. We can run seminars about more detail about what it actually is so that then people would know what they could get from it. So we've got all of that as strong thoughts now about stuff we want to do.
Lamar and I were wondering, as we were thinking about this time with you, how is it that your work in #behumankind as a movement, how has that really impacted you at this point?
Yeah. So I'm not busier, probably. is the point in a way. I'm not busier at all. So the impact on me, before Be Humankind was running an organization, what you might call more of a consultancy, really useful change. So that had lots of great stuff in it about culture and change and was really about helping the health and social care systems in the UK really get better at what they do. And so I've spent a long time doing that. That was busy. I would be away in London and Europe and, all over every week doing that sort of work for all of that time. What Be Humankind has brought for me for the first couple of years was a different way of life, I guess. So much more self-focused, but not so that, and I know there's just to make sure it is understood that I'm not saying being selfish. I'm just thinking that I'm here for me type thing. And I know there's some criticism about the sort of self-development sort of movement or things that people do, that it's all too much about self. But actually it's about self and service for me. And it's back to that we talked about earlier about how can I serve others if I'm not okay myself first. So it's been about a slower pace of life for me to give me much more time to reflect. And I do genuinely believe that I can achieve what I used to achieve in 7 hours in maybe 2 or 3. Genuinely. So I wouldn't sit at my laptop for more than 2 or 3 hours a day anymore. I wouldn't. If I was doing something jointly with someone to help a team or an organization, it wouldn't be days. It would be, how about you take a look at these things and I'll, give them access to some of the content. I'd maybe send them a journal and go do some reflection notes. And we'd only come together as humans for maybe half a day max, where we would do work together. So I work very differently. And I think I'm better for it. For me, a lot more journaling, a lot more reflection. As much time as doing, I spend being, if that makes sense. So if you equate that, like how you work now, you might work 7 hours a day, or I used to work, and it would be doing something. I wouldn't do that anymore. There'll be 3 hours being and 3 hours doing, maybe.
This has been a very interesting conversation, Joolz. We're coming to the end here. That it's been fascinating. I mean, we encourage people to check out the Humankind website and participate as they choose. And certainly, it's encouraged me, and I already joined, but encouraged me to actually be more interactive, for sure. Tom and I always give people that we interview an opportunity to ask us a question or two, which is always an interesting time for us. But we thought we'd give that to you as well, Joolz. Do you have any questions for Tom or I?
A couple which are linked to Be Humankind and things that we might ask that are always really interesting to hear from people. So the first one would be, what's a routine that you have that serves you better or serves you well, that you've worked to put there, like by a habit? What's a habit, a routine that really serves you?
Well, I have kind of a stupid one. So one is for us is that that my wife and I enjoy is that we have really reprioritized attending Quaker meeting, where we participate in Quaker meeting, and we do that remotely, and it's a really special hour on Sunday morning for us, to just be present in silence, mostly silence, and enjoy that time. But my stupid routine is that every night I prepare breakfast for the next day. I get the coffee maker ready. I get hot water ready for my wife's tea in the morning. We eat baked oatmeal probably every single day, right? And so I make sure the baked oatmeal's ready to go. And it's so interesting because I need to do that, because then I feel like I am getting a really nice start to the day, no matter what time the day starts. And if I go to bed and if I've forgotten to do it, I get up and I go do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. And it's not like an obsessive compulsive thing. It's like, oh my God, I got to do it. It's like that. It brings me peace to know that is done.
It sounds.
Maybe if you had a cinnamon roll, that might change your routine.
If I had a cinnamon roll, his wife makes the most incredible cinnamon rolls. I got
that. She does.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Joolz, you were saying something?
I was just saying it really sounds quite intentional, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is.
Yeah. So why it might be serving you to be ready for the day.
Yeah. Oh, Lamar.
Yeah, so
I'm anxious to hear what you say.
Thank you for going first, Tom. So I think one of the routines, and I'm not sure I would say it's a routine as much as a something I try to put in each week somewhere. I have a little coffee shop about 2 blocks away, and I do a lot of coffee meetings intentionally. I have a coffee group that I go to on a Friday morning at 9. By the way, I've just been invited to another one, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do at 9 o'clock on Fridays, but I got this conflict. Anyway, I also do a lot of meetings in this place. Monday, for example, I met with a state senator we've developed friendships with. Met with a director of human resources at a retirement center, people that I know that are in the work world doing things. But I have this time to build these relationships and have these third space conversations in a third space itself. We think the coffee shop is a good representation of a community gathering place. And when I'm in that place, not only do I have the meetings lined up usually, but sometimes I go to just read or prepare. The number of interactions that I have in that place with people who are just coming through, or people who are going to have another meeting with their coffee friends, it really develops that place of community, and I really value that. That has done a lot for me. Since I've retired, I would try to do that while I was working, but as you know, that can be a real challenge. But yeah, that's something I build in, and it's very rewarding.
Brilliant. So people that are perceived to be working or are working, helping them to think about habits that they can do daily or weekly that actually prioritize them and time for them, and like time for the brain to reflect and chill rather than be doing. So time for being in the day by habit is, like you say, easier maybe when we have naturally more control, because our day's not filled with a 40-hour schedule, a weekly schedule of 40 hours of work. But that's what we're trying to do in what's perceived to be work as well, if that makes sense, is to get people to think about some of those habits that they can practice that enable the brain to switch off, get the relaxation it needs, get the sleep it needs, get the reflection it needs, and to recognize that that is work, if that makes sense. So that's cool. I don't know if there's time, but the second question is linked to the sort of movement, Be Humankind movement, which would be, what have you got any ideas for us on how to spread the purpose of Be Humankind is to spread kindness everywhere. And I've talked quite a bit about all of the different ways we do that and where we're going next. And so I'm just interested if you've got any thoughts, any ideas on spreading kindness everywhere.
Well, Lamar, you get to go first this time.
Yeah. Actually, as you have been talking this whole time, one of the things that I've thought about is, like, even on my own website, which Tom has pointed out I need to update, but even on my own website, I'm able to post links to things that I value. And I think that that's an area, and other organizations that I've worked with have done very similar things, finding ways to, as you connect with different organizations and different businesses, to be able to say, hey, can you link to us, because we're not in competition. We're not in any way a business that you have to support, but we are an organization that can only better you and your clientele. So I think that's one of the ways, and I hope to make that link and put it on my website as I'm updating my website, because I think it's an easy way to maybe get some recognition out there.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
I think for me, I keep going back to something we had hoped to do with our mutual friend Ed Schrager, which was to engage our listening audience and our followers in the opportunity to have king prawn conversations with people. And I know that Ed was doing a major revamp of king prawn. I don't know exactly where that's gone at this point in time, but I'm so hopeful that at some point we may be able to use a tool like that to bring people together. I know that when I had those king prawn conversations with people through Be Humankind, because I know you were using king prawn as well. That was really cool. I mean, we were talking like 30-minute conversations, but many times they went longer.
Yeah.
As I just got to know people from the UK and actually somebody that was an American living in South America. I think it was really it was very, very interesting, and I would encourage you to think about that kind of thing as well. And we live at a time in the U.S. when kindness is not particularly at a high value, if I can say it that way. But I think that if we're going to recover that, we're going to have to start one-on-one and kind of bring helping people to understand that kindness is a way of life that's really, really important, and it can have a tremendous ripple effect. When people really begin to engage one another with kindness. So. Yeah, well, it's no small task there, Joolz. You got, I mean, but you know what though, you have inspired us as we were getting ready for this. We actually wrote this in, developed this as a question, and I think you've kind of addressed it already, so we didn't really bring it out. But we're going to start putting this into our podcast with interviews with people. We're going to ask them, what is an act of kindness you've received that changed your life?
Yeah.
And then what is an act of kindness you've done that you hope has changed someone's life.
Yeah.
And actually we kind of start that next week with another interview. So
brilliant. That's fantastic.
It'll be fun to see how that goes.
Yeah.
Well, Joolz, thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, thank you.
I'm glad it worked out for us to connect with you and get you on the schedule for doing this. I have found this to be just a really energizing and interesting conversation today, and I think our listeners will as well. Much appreciation.
Thank you. It's my first podcast.
well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we shall see you again soon, we hope. And actually, you might think about, whenever you're ready to have your second podcast experience, just let us know, okay? So,
well, there's at least 9, one for each of the habits and stuff.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect. All right.
You want a series?
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Joolz.
No,
thank you, Joolz.
It's been great.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was a really interesting interview with Joolz. What were some of your takeaways from that time together?
Oh, Lamar, I really wanted to ask you that question first, but that's okay.
Notice how I jumped right on that.
You jumped right on that. I think that I was reflecting that when I first met Joolz back in 2020, it was kind of in the early days of #behumankind. And I think she was maybe still searching for how to really explain it to people. And I really got it today. I was impressed at the very beginning, so impressed that I jumped on and I signed up right away. And I've stayed in touch with Joolz and the other folks in behumankind. But it really connected with me today. And I think that thing that she said about, our kindness to ourselves, and understanding who we are as a person makes all the difference in how we interact with others and what we get out of life.
I really appreciated her story about how she got to this point, her life experience. And in many ways, I as she was talking, I was nodding, saying, man, I get it. I've been through the mental health world. I've been through mental health reform. I've been through privatization, and you're trying to be that kind practitioner, that kind service provider, but yet you don't have time, resources to handle things the way you want. And so, are you actually coming across as kind? I remember that time well, and that was part of her transformation time as well. And, I'm so fortunate that I'm in a place of retirement that I can sit back and reflect and work on some of these things that I wish I could have worked on years ago.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Me too. I said in the podcast that I really wish, I had known then what I know now. But I really feel that way. I just, sometimes I feel like I lost so much because I didn't have the understanding then that I have at this time.
Well, I know we can all, as we get to this point in our careers, go back and look and say, hey, I wish I would have done something differently. And I don't want to live with a lot of regret.
No,
but I do want to say I'm so thankful that we have these opportunities now to do some reflection. And as we're still interacting in the world around us, that we have a chance to make the adjustments that we want to make. Which is all about what we've talked about on this channel for a long time. That is, how do you show respect? How do you interact with people? How do you develop relationships and keep those relationships even when you disagree? But also, I like adding to what we have been talking about, this idea of being kind. And I think that that's something we should explore a bit more.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Very much so. Hey, see you soon.
All right, take care, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Tom here. Thank you for listening to Getting to Third Space with Lamar and Tom. Remember to click on subscribe to get notices about new episodes, and be sure to like and share the podcast as well. Opinions and ideas expressed in this podcast are solely those of Lamar Roth and Tom Klaus, and we'd like to hear your opinions and ideas too. You can leave us a voice message on Spotify, or you can email us at the addresses found in the show notes. Also, in the show notes, you can find links to some of the things we talked about today, so you can check them out yourself. Until next time, keep moving forward toward third space.
This podcast was recorded live in Kansas, and who cares where it was recorded at in Maryland?